But whether you're a learning manager, instructional designer, trainer, or in some other capacity in learning and development, I think you're going to get something different out of the book based on your role. And that's good. As a learning manager, we see learning managers as the ones who will be more likely to stand up and say, okay, we're going to modernize. And it might be that you're saying that because you're getting pressure from above, or the people on your staff are saying, hey, we've got to do something different. But what we see more of is learning managers themselves coming from their heart saying, something has to change and it's going to be done on my watch. And the L&D managers are the one more likely to say, I'm going to use the learning cluster design model to do it. Let's start. So for you in the book, you're going to find the first couple chapters that tell you the why and the background about what has to change, why we need to change, and give you that foundation to make your case. Throughout the rest of the book, you'll read stories and get concepts about how you can talk to your management about these changes and how you can integrate your staff into the changes that are occurring. So we wish you the best of luck on making those changes. And if you are an instructional designer, I think you're going to take a different approach, because I think you're going to get excited, at least I hope you get excited about the idea of trying on your instructional design muscles on different types of assets instead of just training classes and courses. Now, I'm sure most of you have had some experience with job aids and some other things, but those tend to be the exception rather than the rule. With the LCD model, the job aids and the immediate resources are things that are going to become standard in every learning design cluster, in learning cluster design. And so you'll be able to try your hand at some different things. I also think that some of the learning assets and the deeper understanding of the learner personas will give you a good case for trying out some new technologies that you've been itching to examine. And if you get some small successes, you can then take that technology more broadly across other learning programs. So the learning cluster, the instructional designers, I think, will get something different out of it. But I also want to encourage instructional designers to stand up for the model as you go through the process. Hold the team accountable for sticking to the model versus going back to some of our old habits. To help you with that, we've given you an entire chapter, Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is a story about the Gotta Learn company who is trying to implement the learning cluster design. And as they go through that entire process, what are the common pitfalls that they run into and how do they overcome them? So for instructional designers, would you please consider reading that chapter and then hold your team accountable for going with the modern approach and not falling back into our old habits. So wish you luck on that. For trainers, you have a totally different approach. You're the ones who are closest to our target audience. You're the ones who know the learners the deepest. And I'm sure you can all relate to going through a class and you find a chunk of content coming up that you're about to go through, and you know that that chunk of content only applies to maybe 60 or 70% of your group. And you know the other people are bored, and you really are going to work hard at trying to keep them engaged. But that's when we want you to take notes and point that group of material out to your instructional designers and work with them to say, how can we get this piece of the content out of my class and to the learners who need it in a different form? That's what learning cluster design helps us do. So identify those chunks of content and get it to the people who need it in a way that is going to be most helpful to everyone. The other thing, as a trainer, being so close to the learners, you're more likely to hear about what are the barriers that they're experiencing that prevent them from changing their on-the-job behavior. Again, take note of those things and then go work with your instructional designers to say, hey, what learning asset can we give them to help them when they face these barriers? That is the key thing that you can contribute to modernizing your L&D organization.